Bitwaves.
So excited. We've got Chris Dunn tonight, mentor to thousands of traders and investors, podcaster, YouTuber, motorcycle driver, all sorts of amazing stuff we're going to find out about. Yeah, welcome to the show, Chris. Excited to have you.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, really pleasure to meet you.
I'm still getting my coffee, and I know you guys are winding down. I think we're, 12-hour difference?
I just finished my second Corona.
Alcohol is bad.
Nice.
I've got toothpicks. It's nearly midnight, but I'm good.
For people watching, we've got 3 different countries going on. We got Thailand, we got Bali and Indonesia. And Chris, where are you at?
Texas.
Boom. What part of Texas?
Outside of Austin.
Nice. Do you know Kill Tony?
Yeah, wait, what is that? Is that a show?
It's a comedy show they have every week at the Mothership.
Yeah, I actually still haven't been there.
Is that where Joe Rogan...
Exactly. I'm a big comedy fiend, so if next time I'm in Austin, that would be like one of the first things I try to get my butt into.
Yeah, my buddy's opened a comedy club down the street from that, the Creek in the Cave.
Oh, yeah, Creek in the Cave, exactly. I only know that because they're always talking about it on these shows.
Oh, yeah.
Austin looks really fun. It sounds crazy, too. It sounds like, I don't know what street it's called, 6th Street?
6th Street, yeah. Yeah, it's changed a lot, man. The city's like doubled in the past 10 years.
Tents or people in tents?
Tents, tech bros, crypto, people, everything. Basically, everybody I know from San Francisco left Cali and was like, all right, we hear Texas isn't as crazy, so we're going to bring our craziness there.
I mean, it's going to be warm.
Chris and I met in a warm place in Bali 5 years ago now. I had already done his boot camp and trading course, so I was already learning how to trade. He was traveling in Bali and we caught up and we hit it off as friends because we realized for the first few hours we didn't even talk about Bitcoin or trading. We talked about life for hours and then we cracked up laughing. We're like, we didn't even talk about Bitcoin once. So a friendship was forged. So Chris, I know you're an avid traveler, but can you tell us a little bit about your childhood? Because I know you did a lot of traveling when you were younger.
Yeah, so I was a military brat. I lived a couple years in Korea, a couple years in Iceland, and then bounced around the US. At the time, I didn't appreciate it for what it was. And I was like, Korea, man, this is so foreign and weird. And I was like 5 years old. But looking back, that was like really pivotal and just such a great experience and kind of sparked my lifelong love of traveling. Looking back, it was one of those like just amazing experiences that definitely changed the direction of my life. So,
yeah. Do you think it made you more adaptable?
Yeah. I mean, every 2 years we would move. And so I'd have to uproot, go to a totally foreign area, leave all my friends that I made the prior 2 years. So I got real used to being kind of a nomad.
I've heard of some military brats becoming wild people, wild ones. Mm-hmm. And then you get the other ones who become very strict. And I think obviously that comes down to parenting and how, however your childhood was. Did being in a military kind of household, moving around, but still that military essence, did that bring some sort of a strict work ethic into you or not at all?
I think there were a few things that stuck and there were a few things that, I was like, okay, I definitely can't be in the military because I'm not like these people. Like my dad was a special operations pilot and I was just around really strong male figures my whole life, like basically the most badass guys on the planet. I was hanging around them as a little kid. And a couple of things that did stick with me was like, one, my dad always used to say, if you're a minute early or a minute late, people die. And that I always thought that was over the top, but in his profession, that was literally true. Like he was a helicopter pilot that would go drop off a bunch of Marines or Rangers or Delta Force, right? And if he was early or late, people could die. And so that kind of carried over into our personal life. Anytime he said he was going to do something, he was there. He was never late. He always followed through. And so I was lucky to have that kind of strong dad figure growing up. And I know a lot of people don't have that. And so I think that was a big advantage. And I tried to, take a lot of the things that he taught me and work that into my own life. But then I realized I'm not like these guys. Like I'm not as disciplined. I don't like homework. I don't like being told what to do. Like I very much had like from my mom's side, her side of the family is entrepreneurs. And I had that rebellious attitude. And so growing up through high school, I was like, yeah, I don't think I can go the route my dad did. And then that's where I found entrepreneurship. And I'm like, I think I'm going to go that direction.
Tell us a little bit about your first endeavors. I know you started your own business from quite a young age. So yeah, can you speak to that?
Yeah. So my first job was a dancing ice cream cone at an ice cream shop. And so
You mean a stripper?
yeah, basically with the ice cream cone suit on. But I was like, wow, this really sucks working for other people for no money. And then I ran into this older couple that they had like this detailing business where they had like a mobile setup where they would go and just detail cars. And I heard how much they were averaging an hour. And I was like, wow, that sounds amazing. I can do that. I don't have a lot of money, but I can, start by buying just a few things and then put hustle equity into it. So I started doing that. And when I was like 16, after I got my first car, I would go to like shopping plazas or office spaces and walk in and be like, hey, do any of the employees here want their cars detailed? I'm out in the parking lot. I'll be here for a few hours. And then it was like instant business and instant money. And I would make more in a day than I would make in a couple weeks at the ice cream shop. So I'm like,
damn.
Okay, let's stick with this.
I think back in all my most entrepreneurial friends, probably drug dealers.
Hey, you learn a lot if you're drug dealing, man. You learn customer service, you learn math, obviously. You have to have some kind of sales skill. I guess the product kind of sells itself, but you got to manage expectations, right? All those soft skills.
Drugs are bad.
Yeah, so whenever I was doing my rounds on the mobile detailing stuff, I walked into a mortgage business and it was like, it kind of looked like a boiler room type office setup. It was an open floor plan and there's probably 100, 150 like mortgage loan officers sitting out there. And it was like high energy, like it kind of felt like a trading floor, but this was like 2000 or 2001. And it was when rates were coming down. And so there were a lot of people refinancing. So these mortgage businesses were just making a ton of money. And I walked in and I was like, man, this place is nuts. And the owner, he had an Escalade and he was like, yeah, go detail my car. And he was the biggest asshole. It was just crazy how he talked to people. He just belittled people and like would shout orders. And at the time I was like, wow, that guy's cool. Like he's the boss. He's, I thought that was like a good thing to treat people like shit. I'm like, that's how you know who the boss is. It's the guy treating everybody terribly. So I got to know him and he's like, hey, why don't you come work in here? You can still detail cars. You can use like this little office area as your like office work when you're calling people, but I need somebody on the phones to help do X, Y, and Z and call leads. And I'm like, man, I'm making good money. He's like, I think you can make more money doing this. So I was like, so what do I got to lose? Sure, I'll do it. And sure enough, I started making more money at the mortgage business. So I stopped detailing cars. And then one day I'm walking through the sea of loan officers and I see a guy with like stock charts going. And I was like, Jim, what are you doing? He's like, man, I'm trading E-mini futures. Let me show you. So I sat there for like a half hour and he made like $2,000. And I was like, okay, I don't know what that is, but I'm going to do that too. And so that's how I got into the markets and opened an account, made like $100 and then blew out like $5,000. So I was like, okay, maybe it's not as easy as I thought, but I was obsessed. I was like, okay, I want to learn this. I want to master this. So that's kind of how I got into the trading aspect too. But then also a caveat, I'll just say, like I learned over time, you don't have to treat people like shit to be successful. And in fact, I saw, I'm not going to say his name, but I saw the guy that owned the mortgage company. I saw how his life was just harder because of that. Like you don't have to treat people bad. You can actually be really kind to people and bring other people up. You don't have to tear them down for you to succeed. So that was also a very valuable lesson, I think.
We've all had that boss.
The asshole of an asshole's asshole.
Tell us a little bit then, if you were trading, how did you get into Bitcoin?
So that was early 2000s that I got into the futures trading. I went full-time in 2007 after the real estate bubble popped in the US. And I was like, okay, the mortgage business is dead. Let me try actual like full-time trading. And then at the same time, I was building a software business and was also doing a little bit of real estate because I knew prices were coming down. And I did that full time from like 07 to 2013. And after the financial crisis in 08, 09, I noticed that it was getting harder and harder to trade because we had high frequency algorithms that were coming out. There was less and less volatility every year. So it was like more competition for a smaller pie. And I was like, man, I've got to find a new angle. Like there's got to be somewhere else that's like easier to trade. And then in 2011, somebody brought up Bitcoin. And I looked at it real quickly. There wasn't even, I don't think, a price chart at the time, or if there was, it just looked like a scam website. So I brushed it off. Somebody else brought it up in 2012 again, looked at it. I'm like, what is this? Like a penny stock? What is this scam? And then early 2013, when it went from like 50 to 266, my buddy calls me and he's like, hey man, what do you think of Bitcoin? You know, it's at 250 or 2 something right now. And I pulled up the chart. I'm like, what? How is this thing this high? And I was like, no, don't buy it now. It's going parabolic. It's going to crash. The next day, it dipped right back into like the 50s. And that's when I was like, okay, there's something here. This isn't dying. It's continuing to grow. And there's actually like places to trade it now. So that's when I was like, okay, I'm going to go deep on this I'm going to give it like 6 months. And if nothing happens, I'll move on. But by the time 6 months came along, this was actually like 10 years ago this month, 2013, it went from 100 to 1,000. And that's when I was like, I think I need to talk about this publicly because I think we're in another bubble. And when price was like $800 or $900, I wrote my first blog post and I was like, yeah, I get it. You know, Bitcoin's going to be huge, but like be careful because we're in another bubble, just like we were in the spring. And sure enough, over the next year, it came right back down from 1,000 into the 100s. And yeah, the rest is history there.
For you at that point in your life, and especially at that point in Bitcoin's young life, to have said what you just said, that really does come from experience. Because when I first got into Bitcoin much later, 2016, 2017, and then especially as we went into that big bull in 2017, 18, something like that, what people in the media who were anti were kind of parroting and repeating, which is, you know, Bitcoin's just a bubble. And then
Philip Mania, yeah.
Yeah, and then it was around, you know, maybe a year of research and learning that I started to get this concept of, no, Bitcoin's not a bubble. It goes through bubbles. There are bubbles, multiple bubbles, but Bitcoin itself is not a bubble.
Yeah.
And so how much work did it take to get to that level when you were not even yet in crypto? Because I've never traded stocks. My introduction to all of this was Bitcoin and moving forward from that. So, I guess it's very similar, right?
Yeah, I had seen several assets do like boom and bust patterns, not just on the chart, but also in popularity. So back in the financial crisis days, another market that was really hot was penny stocks. And the big scam back then was email spam marketing, where these email marketers would get paid, you know, 10, 25,000, up to like $250,000 to do like a spam campaign. And they'd say, you know, it was like the old boiler room days, right? Like back in the Wolf of Wall Street, they were just doing that shit on the phone, but it moved to email. And so I've seen markets go through price bubbles, and I understood like what actually drove price. It was human behavior. And so the asset and the viability of an asset, those are completely different than like what price is doing. Because Bitcoin could be the best thing in the world, but if nobody cares about it, the price isn't going to do anything. Or vice versa, you could have, just like we've seen with so many shit coins, a total just scam of a coin that it has a cult leader that convinces a lot of people to buy it, and the price goes nuts for a while. Right. So I saw the kind of the penny stock wave. And then around like 2010, 2012, the next big thing was Forex trading, Forex robots, Forex, all these like scammy exchanges, just like we saw with crypto exchanges. So I knew how people were always like hunting for the next like get rich quick asset. And I'm like, I think Bitcoin's going to do that too, but it's actually viable. Like it makes sense. Like what the value prop of the asset is viable. But I think people are going to do what people do, which is they're going to do stupid shit, which causes price to have bubbles and boom and bust patterns.
Yep. And here we are in 2023. It's one of the best performing assets of the year, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah, we're up over 120% today.
So if people still aren't convinced it's a worthwhile market to be involved in, I don't know what to tell them.
Yeah, like how much data do you need? Like over a decade looking at risk adjusted returns and compound annual growth rate. Like, but Jesse, to your point, you know what the media does is when price is high, they call it a bubble. When price is low, they claim that it's dead. Right? There's some people that are always going to just put a negative spin on it instead of saying, "Oh, price is down, it's cheap." Price is up, it's harvest season, time to sell into the madness, right? That's why the worst thing to do, I think, for a trader is to, or one of the many things that are terrible to do as a trader is to look at journalists and articles about price to help you make your decisions about what you should do. Journalists aren't traders. Most of them are just doing what they can do to get clicks.
Yeah.
Most journalists aren't journalists.
Yeah.
True.
I think we've discovered that in the last few years.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the good journalists that are working at mainstream media, they started Substacks and just left, and now they're bigger than all the bullshit ones. So
Yep, exactly. This leads me to this question. You have reached a level of success and financial freedom where you don't actually have to be out in public telling people all these things about trading and investing and Bitcoin. What keeps you out there in the game, skin in the game still? What motivates you?
Well, I'll give you the selfish reasons first. Number one, I still have financial goals. So, and I think it's always a moving target, right? Like I don't think I'm ever going to get to a point where I'm like, okay, that's enough money. I'm going to go right off into the sunset and do nothing. Like I truly love investing and trading and doing content and helping other people. But selfishly, I like the money that it makes, right? And I also like how it helps me stay sharp. If I'm publicly talking about stuff and I'm putting trade alerts out and I'm giving opinions and I'm, tweeting and I'm saying, hey guys, I think this is a market top, or, hey, this is the best time to buy because of X, Y, and Z, that holds me accountable and it makes me better. Whereas if I wasn't talking about it, I could kind of hide a lot of mistakes and I could kind of, I don't know, it just makes me better as a trader and an investor. And it also gives me more opportunity, right? So I get to connect with people that I wouldn't have access to, or I'd get opportunities to invest in deals that wouldn't come my way if people didn't know who I was. So there's that on the selfish side. And then I guess this is also selfish, but it's kind of altruistic in a way, is like the fulfillment that I get from helping people is real. Like trading and investing is a lonely thing and it's not very fulfilling. It's like, okay, I increased my net worth by X percentage this year. So what? What did you do for the world? The thing that I love the most is whenever I get a message that's like, hey, Chris, I just hit my net worth goal, or I just got out of debt, just any kind of feedback where it's like, hey, you helped me do something.
Yeah.
I just live for that. I love it. So my motto, and maybe this is kind of cheesy, but every day I wake up and I just think like growth and gratitude. So like growth, I always want to be doing something to grow, but at the same time, I want to focus on being grateful for where I am, because you can either get caught up in the endless chase for money where you're never happy and any amount is never enough, or you can just be like, okay, I've got enough, I'm grateful. And then you like slog into this like meaningless existence of just playing video games all day, right?
Yeah.
So I think I've found like a sweet spot where I'm passionate. I wake up excited to work and do stuff every day. But at the same time, I don't feel like I'm doing it because I have to. I'm doing it because I want to.
I think everyone in this group right now knows at least someone who's just a full on in the crypto space, kind of criminal. I mean,
many,
especially the ones who are kind of drifting through, like admittedly rug pullers and like, almost like bragging about it.
Yeah.
There's so much evil going around that I also think the bar is pretty low in terms of not being a scumbag at this point. Just don't be evil and you're all right.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, anytime there's a market where there's a lot of capital coming into it, you're going to get those vultures that come in and they don't care. But like, here's the thing. Like, I think there's a good way to be greedy, and there's like there's a smart way to be greedy, and there's a stupid way to be greedy. The stupid way is going to increase your risk and on average decrease your prosperity over time, which is like, if you screw people over, sure, you might get lucky every now and then, and you might be able to scam people out of some money. But if you do right by people, you're going to build much more wealth over a longer period of time. I've seen this in the real estate space too. Like I've had several partners in real estate where I've tried to do rehab deals or go in on, just group projects. And it's like, there's usually someone who is so stupid and so short-minded that they'll see an opportunity for a quick cash grab to screw everybody over. And yeah, they'll get a little bit of money, but like, they don't realize that they're lowering their long-term earning potential by many, many fold, by orders of magnitude. And it's like, dude, you just screwed me for say 40 grand. Do you realize we could have made $4 million together over the next few years?
Yeah.
But some people are just either so desperate or so stupid that they take the short route. And it's like, be long-term greedy. Like, greed is good, but funnel it in the right way.
One of the mantras that I've always respected that you've always said to people is don't get taken out of the game. Have you ever had an experience that was a huge challenge or was close to being taken out of the game so that you learned the lesson, or where does that mantra come from?
Whenever I first started trading, I blew out a couple of those like small accounts. And at the time I had like no expenses. I was living very cheaply and I had high cash flow. So it's like I could replace that money. But I realized, I'm like, well, this isn't good. If you just keep blowing out accounts, like you're not going to get anywhere. And then I started seeing people that would really like take themselves out of the game, where maybe they had kids and a mortgage and a job that wasn't paying enough to give them cash flow. And then they blew out their account and then they couldn't come back. They were out of the game like for a long period of time, if not forever. And so I was like, well, that's not a good thing to do. So I guess that's where that mentality came from.
Yeah.
And in the early days of crypto, I saw people do that too, where they would just YOLO on leverage, or they'd convert all their Satoshis into some shit coin. And I've just seen over the years, like people that have made big mistakes and lost a lot of money, as long as they stay in the game and they realize there's always another trade or another opportunity around the corner, like that also gives you hope for the future. And you need that, not just blind optimism, but like true understanding that like the markets aren't going anywhere. There's always another asset or another project or another startup. There's always something happening. And unless there's like World War III that takes us all out, like that won't matter anyway. So you might as well be optimistic and might as well keep looking for the next opportunity. And also might as well just turn off the doom and gloomers that are always talking about market crashes. And, I think those people, like, I'm going to say it, like Robert Kiyosaki, he was really instrumental in high school for me when I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. But this guy has done more harm in recent years by just scaring people out of investing. And I know a lot of crypto people are like skeptical of the stock market. And I think there's manipulation and reasons to be skeptical. But if you think about like what the stock market really is, it's owning pieces of the most profitable businesses in the world. Like, yes, I love Bitcoin and the idea of freedom and autonomy and all that, but I also want to own cash flowing businesses, right? Just like I want to own property. So that's where I think the idea of not being dogmatic or like a cultist of any asset class is really important, because that will keep you out of really good opportunities as well. So yeah, I think there's just so many lessons about like just keeping your mindset right. And if you have big mistakes or if you have big losses, to correct those and don't make the same mistakes in the future, and just like, move past them and look to the future and know that there's always another opportunity right around the corner.
Chris, I remember reading some sort of quote from Warren Buffett about how you should never invest in something that you don't fully understand, like 100%. I think it sounds great, but I also don't really subscribe to it, because I've had plenty of occasions where I might have gone by my gut or I was listening to a really intelligent person that I am friends with that I would follow into war in this matter. So there's been other aspects of reasons why I've invested in something that I didn't follow this Warren Buffett rule. But what are your thoughts on that?
So the beautiful thing about investing is there are infinite ways to make money. So when you hear a guy like Buffett or Munger or one of these like legends say something, you have to understand the context and where they're coming from. Buffett made a ton of money by doing a very specific style of investing in a very specific asset class. Value investing in stocks and publicly traded companies and some private stuff. But for the most part, buying big stakes in public companies at what he considers a value, right? That is just one way to approach building wealth. And to succeed in that, yeah, the quote where he says, like, you have to really deeply understand what you're investing in, that's where he's coming from with that. But you don't have to understand stock fundamentals at a deep level to make a lot of money in stocks, because if you just buy the S&P 500 and compound, you're going to beat most fund managers, you know? So investing is one of those things where being passive can actually get you a better return than if you were day trading all day, every day, right? And a lot of people make the mistake that more activity, doing more is going to get me more. That's where investing and trading is different from business. In business, yeah, more activity, more leads, more conversions, you know, yeah, that's usually more revenue. With trading, it's about being more strategic, and oftentimes less is more. But yeah, you can approach trading in so many different styles. You can become a very skilled technical trader. You can become a very knowledgeable value investor. You can become a value add angel investor in startups where you actually say you're technically savvy in a very specific niche. You can help startups and get equity in startups by just advising, right? So there's so many ways to approach it. And I think we just have to be careful of this, like this icon worship. You know, so many people got yesterday, I think it was yesterday, Michael Burry, the guy that made a ton of money from The Big Short, he just got liquidated publicly. I think he lost like $600 million on his short. He was short the stock indices, and there's been this bear porn everywhere where everybody's like, oh, the stock market's going to crash. And Michael Burry's short. So because Michael Burry, he's a legend and he's short, we're either going to stay out of the markets or we're going to short too. Right. And that type of like cult mentality is what leads a lot of people to lose money.
Totally.
And so when it comes to any of these legends, you know, and Buffett and Munger have been very publicly anti-Bitcoin, you have to understand their perspective and where they're coming from. They're not technology guys. You know, they're old school, like Coca-Cola and railroad investors, you know. So just because they're really good at a very specific approach doesn't mean they're a jack of all trades or that they understand crypto as much as we do.
Yeah, totally. So we're gonna switch topics here. We've been talking about Asia on previous shows, but I know how much you love it, so I just wanted to get a little take on why you enjoy traveling in Asia.
The thing that is good about America is also what causes a lot of strife. You know, like we have a great stock market, and the startup scene here is great because people work their asses off, right? And, you know, you've got that American dream mentality and, you know, work and grow. And like at some level, I love that. But it also, I think, is causing a mental health crisis here in the US. And a lot of people get stuck. And you were talking about, Jesse, of like realizing their quote unquote dream and then realizing, wow, maybe the grass wasn't so green over here. And maybe chasing this dream isn't as fulfilling as I thought it would be. And I think that's what I love about Asia is like people are just like truly in the moment there. I've seen it everywhere, right? Bali, Thailand, Philippines. I think, you know, like Japan and Korea for me are a little more westernized where there is that chasing mentality. But Southeast Asia in particular, I really get that vibe of just living in the moment. I've also seen that in like Central and South America as well, like in Argentina where they have, you know, high inflation. It's like they don't have a big nest egg, but they do live in the moment and they spend money and they enjoy life. Costa Rica, Colombia, all of that, like pura vida lifestyle mentality. So I think after being in the US for several months, I start to really crave that vibe and just that energy. That's also why I left the city and why I bought a ranch. And I don't really enjoy, I hate to say it, but I don't enjoy being around most Americans because of that, just that negative polarizing energy that you get nowadays. And everybody post COVID is just pissed off all the time. And I don't enjoy that at all. So there are definitely benefits to the US, and there are, I think, reasons to still be here, at least for me, but I absolutely enjoy being in Asia.
Let's say America suddenly, for whatever reason, hypothetically, was no longer in the cards. Where would you be next?
Good question. I mean, I guess it depends on, visa status and like property ownership, which is something that, I know Thailand is getting better at. As far as I know, they were introducing new laws where maybe foreigners could own like up to an acre or quarter acre of land. I don't know if you guys have heard that.
If you start a business, you've got all kinds of ability to do such things. And then visa wise, there certainly is the elite visa, which is you can just buy your visa
and be elite.
And the elite visa is crazy too, because on top of that, you get like a limo at every airport. Whenever you land, you get all kinds of amenities and secret passes and all kinds of stuff.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah. I think the most valuable thing for me is like when it comes to citizenship or residency is like property ownership. And that I think is a big, something that I value in the US is like, I can buy a bunch of land that has freshwater access.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I have some theories about where the world is going, and that's something that I want to have in my portfolio. But I don't know, if I had to move somewhere, I can't think of one location that I'm like, I'd want to be there full time for eternity. I'm just used to being kind of nomadic, and I enjoy different things about different places. I even love like South Africa. Like there's places like that I'm like, man, those places are awesome. They're dangerous as hell. Property, there's a lot of like social issues there that make it risky and just not as enjoyable. But even with all those problems, I don't think there's any utopia, right? There's no place that's perfect. Like Bali's great, but you got dengue fever,
traffic,
earthquakes, things like that. But I think it comes down to just weighing pros and cons and then spending time where you're the most fulfilled.
You mentioned that, the thing that's good in America can also be causing mental health issues. And I wanted to kind of stamp that just because I agree. I mean, I'm from America. I have a lot of friends and family there. There's so much about it that I do still miss. And I grew up, in the 80s where, chanting, USA was still cool. I'm going to go on a limb here. It seems like you're pretty well put together. What are you doing to kind of protect your mental health, to continue down this path feeling somewhat sane? Because I mean, if I look at Twitter and look at what's going on in America, that's enough to cause me a little bit of stress. It's pretty stressful. So what do you have? What's going on in your life that could be causing a bit more
peace?
With the access to information and just the barrage of bullshit that comes out every day from all the social platforms, you have to be very protective of what goes into your mind. The quote unquote news, right? Mainstream media, that is just absolute garbage. I think people just have to turn that off 100%. There are other better ways to get the information without the political bias and weight and just stuff that comes with that. It's so bad. I mean, I'm sure you guys have had family or friends or know of people that have gotten sucked into the red versus blue narrative and just thinking that one side is actually right.
Yeah.
That I think is a massive problem in the US. Is just the political division. It's through COVID. I mean, that just got turned up to 1 million, and I don't think it's really come down much. And I think, next year is going to be real freaky with the election.
When is that?
That's a year from now.
Right.
So the presidential election is going to be November next year. And I'm not looking forward to the quarters leading up to that. But yeah, I think people just have to put a real big guard up and be very careful what they consume. And also just make sure you're in an area where, and I know not everybody can do this for logistical reasons with their job or just affordability, because it is so damn expensive in the US now. And with rates and real estate prices where they are, it's rough. Even living in cities, which I'm not a fan of in the US. I mean, the cities here are dangerous and they're just angry. Everybody's angry. And so that's where I think Asia and just like Geo Arbitrage is really helpful for people, is like, if you earn in dollars and you live somewhere where you pay in Thai baht or Indonesian rupiah, you're getting a real arbitrage there. You get a quality of life bump for a lower cost of living. And so that's something that I would encourage people to try to do if they're not happy with where they are. So location, environment matters, right? That's why I've done everything I can to create an environment that sets me up for success on the productivity front, on the health front, on just peace of mind front. Because living downtown Austin, I told Nikki, we were there for like a decade. This was pre-COVID. And I'm like, this is too good. This city is amazing. It's so great. It had everything. And the traffic wasn't bad. There was no homeless. There was no protests. It was just great. And then, COVID happened and they basically made the city kind of turn into San Francisco, where they made it open season where homeless people could just sleep anywhere. And then it was like overnight, we didn't even feel safe walking outside of the building. There was meth heads and criminals and just a bunch of really bad stuff happening, like seemingly overnight. And then with the protests through COVID and just that vibe where everybody was so angry and scared. And I think the boom where half of California moved to Austin made that even more heightened. Location, mindset. I think those are kind of the two biggest things that if people focus on, it'll really help improve their quality of life.
Yeah, that's good. That's useful information. I think really some of this stuff can seem so obvious and simple to one person, but we forget that there's a lot of people that haven't reached that yet. How easy it is to get stuck in a loop and to suddenly forget the most seemingly obvious things that will literally drag you out of the mud can be completely impossible to grasp for someone else. So that's why I think that what we're talking about now is really important.
Yeah.
It's like the boiling frog syndrome.
Yeah.
Like some people just end up in an environment where they're not happy, they're not fulfilled, but they're not doing anything to change it. And next thing you know, they're on anti-anxiety meds or depression pills or, angry and resentful of their spouse or their kids or whatever. And it's like, how did I get myself into the situation? It was just by living on default instead of thinking deeply and directing your life in a specific way. Living by default, I think, is one of the most dangerous things. I mean, Leanne, you probably saw that with your old life and down under. Yeah. Just define what success looks like for you, right? You don't have to fall into what society expects of you. Say, what really makes me happy, and do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's again, like you said, with the Geo Arbitrage, you can earn less. And like for me, I've been focusing on another skill set for years. So I can do that here. I could never have done that in Australia. Dedicated 5-6 years to learning how to trade properly. This just wouldn't have been possible. But yeah, it's all about what you're prepared to face jumping or taking a leap. Yeah.
How long have you been married, Chris?
Over 10 years.
Yeah. Is that there was a cheeky smile in that? Over 10 years could be 20 years for all.
Well, we met in high school and then we were off and on, and it's just been a long journey and a fun one. And she's equally as smart, if not a better investor, because she's a woman, and women have an advantage, which is they don't typically let their ego get in the way a lot.
Yeah.
Or as much.
Well, this is last April I got married.
Oh, nice. Congrats, man.
Thanks. And any tips to the newbies over here?
Just, I have friends that have been married and like, it seems like their spouse doesn't have anything in common with them. Like they just, they have very different interests. And I don't know, like okay, like let's say you have a couple that like somebody's an attorney and somebody's an accountant or something. And so they live very different work lives. And then they also have different hobbies and they don't really do anything together. Like, I don't know. That doesn't seem very enjoyable. So like if you can, and not everybody can do this, but if you can find a spouse or somebody, a partner that you can do business with, I don't know. I just think that's fun and awesome. And if not that, at least some kind of hobby. But it's amazing how many people I see that I'm like, dude, they don't do anything together. Or they don't have any similar interests. So I don't know. I just think it's easier if you're on the same page with the money stuff.
Yeah.
And if you can do business together, even better. But I don't think that's a requirement. But
Totally.
Well, when I find my husband, I'll report back.
All right, viewers.
Just make sure he's a true Bitcoiner.
Yes. I put on a dating app once, Fibonacci follower, just to see what type of response, because I knew they'd either be traders in the share market, something to do with charts. And actually it was an interesting exercise because they did respond to the Fibonacci. And if you didn't know what the Fibonacci was, you can forget it.
Move along.
That's cool. That's like a secret code.
Yeah. Except now I'm banned from the dating app. So
Banned?
Yeah, Tinder like banned me for life.
You can't be uploading nudes.
Or trying to scam people out of crypto.
Yeah, exactly.
Someone
what were you
reported,
doing?
Yeah, this was during COVID. My friend and I got banned on the same day. We're on an island with nobody. Someone reported us. I don't know what happened. Can you tell us a little bit about, we were speaking about relationships before and you were both married and finding hobbies and things and common interests. What type of friendship circle do you have now? I mean, as we evolve and move into different phases of our life, what type of friends are in your circle at the moment?
Probably most people, the circle gets smaller as we get older. I don't know. Is that true for you guys too?
Yeah.
Yeah. The people that I'm closest with today are the ones that I have the most in common with. Like, I hate to say it, but it's people that are usually in business or into investing because, just similar interests. A lot of like my old friendships from high school and early 20s, like those have kind of faded away because we don't have anything in common anymore. And I think that's okay. Different people for different chapters of your life. And I've become more brutal with cutting out toxic people or people that just because I've known them for a long time, if they're not adding value and they just create problems, there's no reason to have those people in your daily life. So I think, my circle's definitely gotten smaller and I've just gone deeper with fewer people.
I think there's a lot to be said about also, finding in that small circle, finding more and more about those few people as opposed to finding a little bit about a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's almost an attitude of like no new friends. Like, I don't know, people's motives become less clear, I guess, as you get older and, if you meet someone through social media, I don't know, it seems like a lot of people want something from you. At least that's true in the US. Especially LA. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I just quick story. I went to LA, like this was probably 10 years ago. And through one of my buddies, I don't know anybody in Hollywood or didn't know anybody in the music scene. And we ended up going to dinner with a lady who was an agent for several like famous rappers. And then we met some people in the movie business. And I was just like so interested. I was just asking questions and I'm like, tell me to shut up if this is annoying, but like, I'm just so curious about different industries. And I think they could tell that I wasn't trying to use them or get in with them to meet a famous person. I was just like genuinely curious. And so they opened up a little bit. And one thing that they said was how it seems like everybody in LA is like, the first question is like, what do you do for a living? And what can I get out of it? Right. Yeah. What can you do for me kind of thing, instead of like truly like being interested in people and wanting to see if there's like a connection there. It's more so like, how can I use you to get ahead? Jesse, did you run into that a lot there? Or?
Oh, hell. Oh, yeah, of course. And that goes back to what you're saying about stupid greed versus smart greed. I mean, there's the blowing your load all in one moment and totally ruining any possibility, or there's playing it cool and having something to offer them and kind of working with. There's still an element of greed in there. I mean, don't you know that it's like, how many times have I felt like, oh my gosh, I could get something out of this possible connection that I'm making. Better play it cool. better do the right thing here, as opposed to just being, all up in their face. I mean, it's never going to work out. So yeah, there was a lot of that going on in Hollywood. There was a whole lot of shady behavior.
Yeah. I guess that's what I like about Asia too, is like, whenever you run into people, that's not always their first question. And it's like, hey, what do you like to do? What is your life like? And, can we go have fun or go do something cool? Like, but yeah, in the US, and I guess just in general, like when you run into people that are like, hey, what do you do? And hey, you got any advice? Oh, you're an investor. Oh, cool. Can you get me in on a deal? Like stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like I've become kind of guarded in that regard.
Yeah. Did you have a moment where you realized, shit, money can't buy me this? I have to kick my ass into gear and do this myself.
Yeah. I mean, I think the skill set of finding the next big thing is, you can buy subscriptions to different newsletters or look online for, people to tell you like what the next big thing is. But that's, I think, a skill set that takes a lot of just experience and exploring and deep work that you can't fully outsource. And that's what I spend most of my days thinking about, is like, what is coming that nobody's thinking about.
It's such a long learning curve with trading. And I know because I'm in it and still mastering aspects of it. Do you have advice for people do you think there's still money in trading? And what advice would you have for people that want to be a trader and haven't done it yet?
Yeah. I mean, this could be an 8-hour conversation, but I'll try to distill it down to maybe a few things. Trading is a skill, right? It's something that you develop. Think about golf. I always use the golf analogy. It's like, you can take a course or watch some YouTube videos on how to be a golfer, but that's not going to get you on the PGA Tour, right? To where you're making the big bucks. Step one, you got to learn the rules of the game. You got to watch videos and study. But there's a second step that a lot of people try to skip, which is why most people lose money, which is the skill development aspect. So like, say you learn what a driver is and a putter and the rules of the game, you still need to go to the driving range and practice and learn how to not shank it and learn the mental game. And after you've developed the skill to be able to make money, you have to perform. It's a performance activity. So just like you could be the best golfer playing with your buddies, and then you go in a tournament where there's a lot of money on the line, you could choke. The same is true for trading. When you put real money on the line, you find out who you really are, what you're really made of. And you can't hide from fear and greed and like all these emotions. And until you experience that, it's impossible to know what it feels like. So I would say, just for anybody that's interested in learning how to trade or invest, it's like, just take action, number one. But number two, like, go slow to go fast. Like, don't try to rush the process. If you try to get rich quick overnight, professionals will take your money.
Yes.
It's just like poker, it's a competitive environment. And it is a lifelong journey. And if you are long-term greedy, you're going to do well. If you're short-term greedy and you do stupid things, you're going to get wiped out and taken out of the game. So that's where I would start, is just like, write down rule number one is don't do anything to permanently take you out of the game. Rule number two, realize there's always another opportunity around the corner. Rule number three, go slow to go fast. And I know none of that is sexy or like fun, but if people just started there, I think a lot more people would actually make money. But there's a reason why a majority of people actually lose money in the markets. And just know that something else is coming. And every week I get the question like, oh, I missed Bitcoin. It's like, did you though?
We've got a segment called market buy questions. So you don't get to think about it. You just have to answer.
You got to hit it like the market buy button.
Yeah. Boom.
All right.
But before we do that, Chris, where can people follow you, find you, and get more content from you?
Chris Dunn TV on most platforms, I guess Twitter or X, and then YouTube are probably the ones I'm most active on. Yeah, we've got wetalkmoney.com is the pod with Travis and Nikki. Dailydough.co is the newsletter Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. Skill Incubator is our wealth building community. Those are kind of the main 3 ways.
Yep.
Market buy questions.
Twitter or Instagram?
Twitter.
City or country living?
Country.
Best trade ever
That you made.
Yeah.
Best trade ever, Bitcoin at 188.
Ooh.
It's pretty good.
Favorite Australian word?
Nar.
I don't understand that R at the end of an O. I love it.
Chris is
I
always
think it's NAAWWRHRRR.
Oh, Jesse, you did a good one then.
Yeah, I'm learning.
Chris is always sending me little videos of that. No. Favorite Thai food?
Ooh. Khao soi.
Wow, look at that! You do know Thailand. That's
Northern
not your
Thai food,
average.
man.
That's not your average Thai,
Thai
full moon
answer.
party guy answer.
Yeah. No, man. Northern Thai food for the win.
You know what's up.
How do you ground yourself?
I mean, I do a what I call my daily dump in the morning, kind of a funny play on words there, just with a brain dump and a little bit of a gratitude session. So
Nice.
Most hated thing about crypto?
Fraudulent cult leaders.
Best bet for the next 2 years?
Raw land with access to fresh water. Bitcoin, obviously. Let's just say land and Bitcoin.
Those are huge. Those are good.
Big.
Yeah.
And lastly, what does freedom mean to you?
Not having to do shit that you don't like with people that you hate.
Brilliant.
That was Chris Dunn, everyone. Well, thank you so much, Chris. This is actually really fun.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, this was great.
He's got a lot of great stuff, a lot of great content, a lot of great things to learn. This was Bitwaves. We love you guys.
Yeehaw.